Family disputes can make us feel isolated and vulnerable. Maybe you're going through a divorce or a legal dispute about your kids. Perhaps you've spent hours on Google or have even posted anonymously on Facebook to see what others have to say. But are you getting the actual information and support that you're looking for? Our podcast, Legal Lounge, aims to dispel misinformation and downright bad legal information to empower anyone with questions about their family, their children, their finances, their marriage, and the law. As a team focused exclusively on family law matters, we aim to help listeners not only with the information they need, but also with the hope that their situation has a solution. Short disclaimer, please note this podcast is for educational purposes only, and the information should not be relied upon as legal advice or for legal purposes. Here we are again, Theresa, Viera, attorney and founder of Modern Legal, and I'm sitting down with one of our Modern Legal team members.
Yes, hi, I'm Sabrina Frenette. I'm the newest member of Modern Legal, so excited. It's been an adventure every day so far.
Yeah, an adventure. You actually passed the bar in the summer of 2023.
Yes.
So you're fresh off the press.
Yes, thank God. Pass that and I never have to think about it again.
Well, you say thank God, and then you chose to practice family law.
I know. Oh gosh. Yeah, it's been interesting. Wouldn't do anything else, but it's definitely been an interesting subject.
Yeah, it's its own animal.
Yes, yeah. For sure.
For sure. It's funny because a lot of people will say, "Oh, you're a divorce attorney," and I'm like, "Well, be careful with that D word."
Oh, yes.
Because it's not only divorce; we really are family law attorneys. We are here for the entirety of the family throughout all of their family law needs.
Yes, the D word of family law.
Yeah,
and it's funny because I think that is probably the word that we hear out of our clients' mouths, like within the first couple minutes of meeting them, and then that's actually the least important word, if any.
Yeah.
That's, as family law attorneys, we don't really pay attention to divorce in the beginning, at least. We listen for a lot of other stuff because usually more important stuff, the stuff that's going to impact our clients in the long run, that's going to be more important for their livelihood is going to be stuff like property, stuff like if they have children or if they're interested in alimony, spousal support. So that's really what our main priority is when we're listening to our clients' stories.
Yeah. So from a legal perspective, the divorce, it's interesting as you point out, divorce does not equate to child custody. No. Divorce does not equate to alimony necessarily or property distribution. Like everything kind of works together, but divorce really is just a legal process of changing your status from married to single.
Yes. Exactly. It's kind of just the paperwork that you get from the court saying, you're single now. Congrats.
Yeah. Congrats. The legal relationship has terminated.
Yes.
And at least here in North Carolina, and yes, I feel like people who come from out of state, they're like, you have the year of separation.
Yes. People hate that.
I know.
It's shocking.
And I was like, well, if you knew what I knew, I actually like it better. And I guess I'll explain. I'll explain why I like it better because there are states or what we lawyers call jurisdictions in the United States where you can get a divorce definitely less than a year. But it's my understanding, although I'm only licensed in North Carolina, that in a lot of those jurisdictions, you can get the divorce, i.e. that piece of paper that says you're single now, but you don't necessarily have everything resolved. You may still be able to sue for property or spousal support or child custody may have not even been touched yet. Whereas in North Carolina, the bigger date for us is that date of separation. So for example, you can date after the date of separation because you're technically not married in that marital relationship after the date of separation. But be careful before you do. Talk to your family law attorney. They'll tell you why. But the divorce, which occurs a year later, is more so a stopgap, an endpoint, right? So between the date of separation and the date of divorce is at least a year, generally about a year to year and 3 months, because of the divorce process here in North Carolina. And the courts say, hey, if you need our help with your family and your property distribution, debt distribution, business distribution, who gets the house, any spousal support issues, like is there any type of payment from one spouse to the other spouse? You have this just over a year to figure it out. But once that divorce judgment is granted or ordered, you no longer can come to the courts. Why? Because you're done. We're done with you, right?
Mm-hmm. No, exactly.
And so luckily, in a way, that's a protection because once the divorce is granted, people can feel more at ease from a legal standpoint that they're not going to be sued for alimony, that they're not going to be sued for, a greater portion of their retirement account or anything like that.
Exactly. No, it's definitely, in my eyes, a blessing in disguise. And I feel like we have seen many people come in who want to have a divorce. They're ready. They're like, let's start filing stuff today, tomorrow. And then a couple weeks later, they're like, actually, like we reconciled. I love them again. Like we're going to make the marriage work. So it also prevents like a little bit of that. It prevents the courts from getting clogged up with all of these
back and forth.
Yeah. So we know once you've been separated for at least a year, you're done. You're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. You also have that ease in knowing like, okay, I'm not going to be sued for these other things after the marriage has ended.
So you were touching on it a moment ago, that emotional relationship to the D word, the divorce word. I know maybe it's because we're used to it. I mean, you're not used to it yet. You're still a young lawyer, but we're used to it where it's like, well, yeah, that's just paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
But what have you seen, like the emotional side of divorce?
The clients that I've worked with so far, we see some clients that are ready to go, are almost excited by the idea of finally getting out of this marriage because maybe it's been a really toxic situation, or they're just, ready to have that independence that they've been missing. But we also see clients, and I would say the majority of our clients are dealing with probably, a multitude of emotions all at once. There is that sadness and almost that sense of mourning something ending, that relationship dying in a sense. And then also maybe there's some anger with your ex-partner. Maybe there's frustration, either with your partner or the legal system in general. We see that all the time. There's a lot of hurt that goes into it. So it's a really emotionally tolling process. And even for our clients that maybe are excited to have that part of their lives, that chapter of their lives come to a close, they're still dealing with, also that sense of sadness and anger and frustration. So it really is, it's different for everyone. It's unique, but there's a lot of different feelings going on in the process.
Building relationships is a natural part of life. But how does the law affect those relationships? Do you want to marry your significant other, but have cold feet from the many divorce horror stories out there? Are you preparing for a custody battle against your ex? That is where Modern Legal comes in. We offer education and knowledge about the law when it affects the relationships near and dear to your heart. To learn more about how family law affects your family, book a consultation with an attorney of our Modern Legal team by visiting our website, emailing us, or calling us at 704-286-6302. Check out the information about Modern Legal Services at modernlegalnc.com. I read a study once where they compared the grief that someone feels when a loved one has died is similar to the grief someone feels when they're going through a divorce.
Yes, exactly. I was actually just talking about that this morning with someone because we were talking about divorce and comparing it to, when a loved one dies, but it's like when a loved one dies, everyone is gathering together. They're all mourning it with you. Whereas with a divorce, those that don't really understand it, maybe they're not going through that grieving process with you. They're not maybe truly understanding the support that you need during that. And a divorce, I mean, obviously we've seen some of these cases last like years and years. So it's just an ongoing thing.
Yeah. And so in North Carolina, the divorce process, although it's just relatively simple paperwork, like you were pointing out earlier, when it comes to children, you have child custody disputes that can be relitigated. So that could last for years. Or let's say someone has filed a lawsuit for alimony or property distribution, equitable distribution here in North Carolina. And because of the complexity of their estate or their finances, suddenly this case that you were hopeful to be done before you got the divorce judgment is now lasting years beyond the divorce judgment because it's pending in the courts. And that emotional toll of it just not being done.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, it's treacherous to some of our clients.
Yeah.
And I feel for them because the legal system has this horrible way for solving family law disputes in a very adversarial system.
Yeah.
Whereas, if we're able to find an agreement on those things, then the divorce can really be, once that year has passed and the divorce judgment is entered, could really be a bookend to that story or that final sentence in that chapter of a person's life.
There's a sense of relief that comes with finally knowing, okay, once everything has been settled or, everything, the kids have turned 18 if you have children or whatever, there is like a sense of relief that I think comes for a lot of our clients once at least they can start to see the finish line. Because, it can be really stressful to think, okay, this could last for years, possibly, some of the issues. So
my hope is that as we kind of bring light to the reality of divorce, that people will want to try to resolve things in a more fair and I'm going to be okay with this versus I need to get every penny.
Oh, yeah.
Because to get that last penny, and I mean, I know you're new to it, but you've read some of my cases. To get that last penny, they may be in years of litigation or may pay their attorney thousands upon thousands of dollars to get that extra penny.
Oh, yeah. No, it is funny reading, and people make jokes about it, but we see it. I feel like I read cases about it where people are litigating over the smallest things that you can imagine. I was just talking to someone and the two parties were arguing over like a little toy wagon. And there was no sentimental value. It wasn't worth anything. You could buy it at any store, any Walmart. And they were spending so much money on attorney's fees over this wagon. And it's like so stupid, but we see it all the time. And to be able to kind of be like, okay, let me take a step back, look at the situation objectively. And sometimes people do need the help of their attorney to do that because you are just so wrapped up in the emotions of it all. But to say, okay, is this really worth fighting over, spending weeks or months, like spending time worrying about? Most of the time, not really. So.
Yeah, most of that time, not really. From a logical standpoint.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think you've heard me say this in the office. I'm like, but you presume people are acting from a very logical, rational standpoint. Yeah. And a lot of people, I'll throw attorneys and judges into the mix.
Oh yeah.
If I'm insulting you, feel free to leave a comment as well. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of stuff that people fight over that actually has nothing to do with the item, the wagon, right? And it has everything to do with, okay, am I actually ready for a divorce or am I ready to truly let go? And there are times when I'm like, the only reason this person filed that malicious motion with the courts is because they just want to hold on.
Oh, for sure.
And so, we have the divorce, the legal divorce, which is paperwork in our world. But then there's the actual divorce.
Yeah. Stuff to us that seems obvious when you're in it. I can understand you're looking at it from a completely different perspective because maybe you're just trying to get the last last thing that you can from your partner. Maybe they were controlling, or maybe they still want to be controlling. Or, maybe you're feeling upset because of something that they did in the marriage or didn't do. And you're just like, okay, this wagon means more to me than just that physical item. So I totally get it. And it is something, I think it is, there's so much more wrapped up in it. And sometimes I think people do need attorneys just to help them manage the emotions of it because it's a lot.
Yeah. And you're making me remember some of my cases. The stories. Yes, we have some of the best stories out there as family law attorneys. But one that came to mind was we were at a mediation, which is a wonderful process that is done outside of the courtroom where the parties, not necessarily in the same room, but at least under the same roof, separated by, conference rooms, and, one person is in one room with their attorney and then the other person is in the other room with their attorney. If they retain attorneys, and then there's a mediator that goes between the two, kind of ping pong back and forth between the rooms. And I was at a mediation, and we had resolved everything except for a side table. A side table. I got to tell you about the side table. It fit perfectly on one section of a wall in the house, and I get it. It was a nice side table. And we had resolved everything, and we were still in mediation. Oh, I finally turned to my client. I'm like, I will buy you the side table. and I get it. I could see as a third party looking in, right? Because even though, and I do take every case as a means of a client allowing me into their family, into their most intimate situation, right? Mm-hmm. Like I learned, I see bank statements, I see pay stubs, I see school records, I see health records, I see, interviews by therapists, right? A lot of that stuff I'm not necessarily going to bring to a courtroom, but I see it. Mm-hmm. And my client allows me to see it, right? Even though I'm like, give me that stuff. Yeah. Like they still allow me to see it, right? And they've allowed me into their most intimate realm. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, I'm still an outsider looking in and saying, it has nothing to do with the side table, does it?
Yeah.
It has everything to do with everything else.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. I know. And I feel like that is one of the most rewarding parts of this job, is getting to stand by people during that such a vulnerable time in their lives. Yeah. But it can be hard. Yeah. Especially, oh my God, especially when the opposing side, or, your ex-partner, ex-spouse, is the one that's being totally unreasonable, and they're the ones just dragging things out. I'm right there with any of our clients, feeling equally as frustrated because it's annoying.
Well, especially when our clients are like, I didn't ask for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's another topic I think we need to touch on, is marriage is still a voluntary situation. Mm-hmm. So 100 years ago, yes, it was illegal to get divorced. Okay, maybe a little longer than 100 years ago. I'm not sure. It could be such a topic. But it was, at one point in our past, our legal past, it was illegal to get divorced. Mm-hmm. And you actually had to go to the courts and ask for permission to get divorced. And you had to actually show cause as to why you would even separate. Mm-hmm. And then you still had to wait before you got the divorce. Yeah. Right? But today our legal system has not necessarily modernized completely, and it's not always fair or just, but it has modernized to the extent of marriage is very much a voluntary relationship. Mm-hmm. Meaning if one spouse wants out, they can get out.
Yeah. No, thank God. Yeah, because I know some people still think, if there's been infidelity or something, for example, in a marriage, they still think, oh gosh, I have to go and prove this in court that there was unfaithfulness. And you don't have to do that, thank God, because that would be a whole other process in itself. Yeah. Now we have this beautiful thing called no fault divorce.
Yep, here in North Carolina.
Yeah, where you just get to say, you know what, we had some differences, it didn't work out. Yeah. And now we're asking the court to, basically no longer recognize our marriage.
Yeah. And to dissolve it.
Yeah, exactly.
And to your point, the no fault, I love the consultations, and I admire all the clients who have done this, but they will come in with like stacks of text and stacks of pictures and all this stuff. And especially if it's like a short marriage, I'm like, I'm sorry, but none of that is relevant.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, you don't need it to get the divorce.
No, exactly.
You don't. Not here in North Carolina. You still have to wait the 1 year.
Yeah.
Because the only type of divorce we have is the no-fault absolute divorce in North Carolina. But I mean, I'll take a look at the pictures and text messages if you want me to. But it's not always relevant.
Oh, yeah. I'll be angry with you alongside you.
Let's be angry together. I'm all for it.
Yeah. But besides that.
Damn that person. Like,
But yeah, besides that, I'm like, oh, well, no other use for that. But
yeah. Every once in a while, I'll just say, well, you can, in a safe manner, burn it in a sink.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Take the therapeutic relief out of it. Or let's say that's not your jam and you want to go to a boxing class. Yeah. I got you. I know some boxing gyms in the area. Let's get that stress out.
Anger out.
But yeah, it's interesting how often clients think something is important.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want clients to feel like they don't have control or authority over their lives. But when it comes to the law, a lot of it is not relevant or important.
No, it's true. And I think that can be really hard for a lot of clients and even like us attorneys to wrap our minds around, is just the fact that sometimes even when a situation doesn't seem fair, doesn't seem just, like if you've been cheated on, I totally understand feeling angry and upset and wanting some kind of wanting the other party to feel some kind of punishment in a sense. But from a legal standpoint, there's nothing that we can do. So yeah, there is a difference, I think, between what feels fair and what feels just in our own personal lives versus what the court sees as fair and just and equitable. So that can be a difficult conversation, I think, to have with clients,
especially because it's so personal.
Yeah,
and so they want to bring it up and they want to find relief in the law. And the law, I love the law. I mean, we're attorneys, right?
Yeah, we're legal nerds.
We are legal nerds. We'll read so much case law. I know you love reading it.
Yeah.
And we'll get the nitty-gritty on all the family court cases that we hear about or go through the appeals process. But when push come to shove, a lot of things are not as, say, a commoner or someone from the public would think they should be. And instead, it very much is, well, doesn't matter legally speaking. If it doesn't matter legally speaking, then the judge doesn't even want to hear about it.
No, exactly. They're going to be like, this is a waste of my time.
Yeah. It reminds me when I'm like, talking to some of my clients and I'll ask them a question and they'll go on to explain and I'll be like, that's not relevant. I learned that in law school, by the way, when my property professor was like, he was asked a question and he was like, not relevant. Moving on, next question. And I was like, I still want to know the answer. But
oh, yeah. Oh, my God. The way you'll be like shut down immediately by like judges, by your professors.
Yeah. Not relevant. Move on.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, my gosh.
I think that's also something that family law attorneys incorporate because we aren't just judges and law professors.
Yeah.
I like to point out that our licenses and when we pass the bar, they actually say attorney and counselor of law.
Yeah.
And I think in the family law realm, we utilize that term counselor like no other profession in the legal system.
Oh, yeah, right? Definitely.
Yeah. One of my clients, she's hilarious. One of my clients, she always comments, she's like, that's why you said I hear you a lot, isn't it? I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Because I hear you. She's like, stop saying that. I'm like, but I do. I hear you. It's not relevant, but I hear you.
Oh, man. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I'm not trained to be a therapist. So I was like, I can use some of the therapy speak, but like, I'm not trained to do that. I can recommend you, though, many people. But
well, and let's talk about that because I think a lot of people, rightfully so, when they're going through the separation process or the divorce process or a child custody dispute, hopefully, and I recommend this, that the first person they should talk to is a family law attorney.
Yeah.
First off, there's the privilege. So attorney-client privilege is the strongest privilege that exists in our justice system.
Mm-hmm.
We can keep things secret more so than your priest or your therapist, really.
Right.
And anything you say to us, unless you're actively committing a crime or hurting someone, we cannot disclose to anyone.
Right.
To
Exactly.
anyone.
Mm-hmm.
You cheated on your spouse, I can't say anything. Right?
Exactly.
And there's certain things that someone can share with their attorney that can't be protected anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. So
first off, always tell your attorney everything.
Yeah.
Don't lie to your attorney.
Yes, please don't.
But aside from that, I'm glad that a lot of people talk to a family law attorney, but then they almost latch on to their attorney for everything.
Oh, yeah.
And I wish I could be someone's everything.
Mm-hmm.
In all facets, romantic, personal, professional, etc. But it's just not possible.
Yeah.
To your point, I mean, unlike Tiffany, another attorney at our firm, we haven't been trained therapists. We have not been trained. We're not licensed real estate agents. We are not, there are divorce coaches out there.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, I can get the divorce decree that says you can change your name, but to actually go through the paperwork, you might want to get the assistance from a divorce coach to actually help you get all the documents you need changed, or, bank accounts being transferred into your sole separate name, or maybe applying for a credit card because you've never actually had a credit card in your own name. And these are some things that I'll get questions for that I can answer to the best of my ability, because trust you me, yes, our world is separation and divorce and family issues. But I'm not the best resource.
No.
Always.
No. Yeah, I know exactly. It's like we can point you in the right direction usually 9 times out of 10, I would say, but we can't answer every single question or I feel like some people want us to list their house for them. And I'm like, yeah, we can't do that.
Or file their taxes for them. I'm like, I'm not an accountant either.
You don't want me doing that.
Yeah. We can barely add. Remember, we went to law school. We did not get our master's in mathematics. I love that being pointed out. On the flip side, I do want our clients to be directed in the right direction. So as you just pointed out, we have networks. We do work with people. We know a number of therapists and financial advisors. There's a saying that, in every relationship, there's your spender and your saver.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And maybe the spender needs to seriously sit down with a financial advisor to learn how to save. And that's okay. But be careful asking your attorney for that information, because although it may be helpful, it's not likely the most intuitive and in-depth information that you may need. Go one step further. Your attorney may be billing for that.
Oh, yeah. No, exactly. Yeah.
And attorney rates are ridiculous. We agree. Mm-hmm. We agree. They're like, I hear all the time, they're like, oh, that's a high hourly rate. I'm like, I understand. There's more to it than just, the hourly rate.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes. But on the flip side, I know financial advisors that you don't even have to pay anything to just sit down with them to get a broad understanding of what it means to have your finances organized, or to have a broad understanding of different retirement accounts or bank accounts.
Yeah, no, exactly. It can be really helpful, especially if maybe you don't have a strong understanding of what's going on in your financial world. But yeah, there are definitely a lot of resources out there.
I do remember I had a client, I adore her. If she ever hears this podcast, I hope she reaches out, because it's been a long time. But she was with her spouse since they were very, very young. Probably right after you were legally able to get married. I believe they got married, and they had both retired, and they were much, much older, wiser, I should say. And they had fallen out. They hadn't had a romantic relationship in a very long time. And although there was still a love there for each other, she was like, I'm not dead yet. And I'm like, girl, you're not dead yet. No. And so after we got the divorce done and everything was wrapped up, I remember the last call was, so can I go dating? And I was like, yes. If you're asking for legal advice, yes, you can date. And she's like, no. But what does that involve? And I was like, oh, whoa. Like, true statement here. This woman had never dated. Like, maybe in high school, which is years ago. And obviously, high school too has changed, right?
Yeah.
And I remember, obviously, took her off the clock. I was not billing for this. But I was like, okay, girl, do not have them pick you up from your house. You meet them at a public location, preferably coffee or lunch for your first date. I mean, we went through the whole gamut of like what it's like to date nowadays.
I love
that. And not that I'm a professional matchmaker or dater, but I have had my own war stories.
We do have experience with that.
We have experience with that.
Give you personal advice. Oh my God. Yeah. What apps to avoid, what sites to go on. Oh my gosh. Yes. I love that story. I know. I think that's like such a huge thing. It's just starting over, like, again, like just coming to a new chapter in your life. And for a lot of our clients, like they haven't dated in decades. And now they're getting to get back out there. I don't know. I find it kind of exciting.
Yeah, but I know. Me too. And it's interesting because people are like, well, now I have kids, or they're going to be people who, have kids. And, I love the ability to help people start that next chapter.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not a matchmaker, but let's reflect on what you just divorced, right?
Yeah.
And make sure we don't repeat that.
Yes.
And let's figure out that next healthy step forward.
Exactly. Yeah. That is such a big part. And it's fun to get to see. I feel like sometimes, like I've heard you talk about like your clients that will reach out years later after their divorce has been finalized and they're moved on and they're like, I'm in such a great relationship now. Like, I don't know, you just hear like such great stories from people being like, I've started over and my life is so great now. And it's lovely. I love to hear that.
And then I also follow up with if you're getting married, let's talk about prenup.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And most of them are like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the number one thing they want.
Because they've been through it. Once you've been through it, it doesn't take much to want to protect that in the future.
Yeah.
Well, Sabrina, thank you so much for joining me here in the Legal Lounge.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Great talking with you, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our discussion. To learn more about me and the Modern Legal team, go to our website, modernlegalnc.com, or check out the links in our show notes to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can also call us at 704-286-6302. If you have been intrigued by the conversation and would like us to continue our discussions, please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. See you next time.